computer. All right, Amy, I think, do you want to wait or do you want to jump right in?
I say jump right in.
Okay, great. So welcome everybody. As you know, Amy, Misty, and I went on an amazing journey of personal awakening through Boston and surrounding New England area. But to preface all of this, there's something that I think epitomizes both Amy and Misty and what they I was going to say endured.
It's a good word.
Yeah. So it's captured in this quote by the great explorer Ferdinand Magellan. And Misty, since you are not going to share your story, perhaps you would read this if you would.
Okay. The sea is dangerous and its storms terrible, yet these obstacles have never been sufficient reason to remain ashore. Unlike the mediocre, intrepid spirits seek victory over those things that seem impossible. It is with an iron will that they face the most daring of all endeavors, to meet the shadowy future without fear and conquer the unknown.
Thank you, Misty.
Mhm.
It's such a beautiful, poetic way of capturing what happens on these journeys, because the future is always, at least to us, in shadow. And yet to rush forward in a way that embraces it and shuck aside our fear is the aim. That and the aim of awakening. And I'm so excited because there were so many times that Amy spoke with tears running down her cheeks, with emotion deeply choked in her voice, with childlike wonder blazing in her eyes. And it happened for both Amy and Misty. Misty has elected to have a more intimate gathering where she's going to be sharing her story. But today, it is all about Amy and hearing her story. And then afterwards, we'll get a chance for any questions and answers.
Looks like
So
somebody else
without
is
further
joining.
ado, and Nicole, welcome. We're glad to have you on. Amy, go ahead.
Perfect. First, I want to tell you guys, Galen and Devin, thank you for supporting Lane in doing what he does, because it literally changes lives. Like, the impact is so broad that I'm so grateful for the change that I've had. Okay. I'm going to go with the outline that it says in the guidebook. The first one, it says to create a hook. I'm not like a big speaker yet. I'm not like, I love to read books, but I'm not super good at creating stuff yet. I'm going to say yet, but this is a good practice. So in the guidebook, it says to come up with a hook sentence. So my hook sentence is, the story tells how a professional victim became her very own Wonder Woman. So that is good. Okay. Once upon a time, there was a mother of 6 who woke up one day and found herself entangled in a massive mess that was her life. She was not fulfilled in life, and she was not okay living that way anymore, and it was time for change. Okay, so 12 years ago, on Friday, actually, Carter's birthday was Friday, our oldest, we welcomed our oldest into our family, and then 2 years and 2 months later, we had a set of twins. And then 2.5 years later, we had another set of twins. So in 4.5 years, we had 5 boys. Yes. I love your eyes, Galen. Yeah, we had 5 boys in 4.5 years. So with for the pregnancy of my second set of twins and then the full first year of their life, my husband was working nights. So I pretty much did it all by myself. We survived. We survived. And I am grateful that we survived, but it was not, I didn't love it, right? Especially in the thick of it. Okay. So as we survived, we established some crappy patterns, and that just led on into life. So when it was about 6 years ago, I found myself reading a book that helped me to learn prosperity principles, that helped me to have this yearning for more than what I was living. And I I knew it was out there. I didn't have any energy to make it happen. And so I ended up praying. I asked God to please help help me to be able to live a better life. And the answer came in Brett losing his job. And life looked like it was falling apart, but it actually was creating space to make it better. So after he lost his job that time, he ended up getting a job. We moved to southern Utah where it's sunny and beautiful, and it doesn't snow, and he was making enough we could pay the bills, and he was working days, and it was wonderful. And then a year later, we ended up moving to Hurricane, which is half an hour away, which saved more money, and it was practically paradise. I loved it. And uh, Brett was gone all the time, and the kids were starting to get older, and then we had our little girl, our sixth baby. And my energy was tanking, and I ended up reading this book again. And after I read this book, I have this soul yearning that there is more to living, more to life than what I'm experiencing. And I feel like it's possible. I just don't know how. Like, I don't have the energy to make it happen. There's more to life. So anyway, after I read the book the second time, Brett lost his job again. And then we ended up moving to Arizona, which I loved Arizona. Like, thinking back, I love the temperature. I love that it doesn't snow. We were in Havasu, which is like blazing hot, where I'm like, I want to try to find somewhere that we could grow a garden. But other than that, it was pretty epic. Life got better, and Brett was in charge of, so we were able to have more money, and he was in charge of his schedule, and the kids were able to hang out with dad. Like, they were at an impressionable age that it was time for them to have dad around. Life got better. And we were there for 2.5 years, and then it was good, but it wasn't amazing. And life, it was good enough until it wasn't. So we were there 2.5 years, and I woke up and realized, when I say wake up, it kind of was like get out of the mommy phase, the mommy fog, the zombie fog, right? I wake up and I was like, what am I doing? Like, what am I living? What is going on? So I ended up um, working with a coach that she helped me to make a goal for my life of what I really wanted. And I wanted to love my life, because I didn't love my life. My body wasn't in shape, and Brett and I didn't have connection, and money was out of control, and the mess. I felt like I just spent my time chasing the mess. So I had this goal that I wanted to love my life. So I started by making space out in the world, and it didn't matter what I did, it always got filled back in. And so there's a principle where your external circumstances are merely a reflection of what is going on inside my head. And I had been trying to figure out how to clean out my head. Turns out it starts with telling the truth, because the truth really does set you free. So as I was looking for how to figure out how to clean out my head, I came across Lane and the hero's journey. So as we had the conversation with Lane, he described the transformation that happens in people on their trek, and I wanted that. And that's what I signed up for. So I originally signed up for the Japan trip last May, but my passport didn't come in time, which that was a fiasco. Oh, anyway, might be traumatizing dragging the kids to the passport place. And anyway, it didn't come in time, but I wasn't supposed to be on that trip. That's fine. And then I signed up to go to New Zealand. And then actually it was a year ago today that, hold on, I got to back up. So life was not epic, and I wanted it to be. And so I actually, after we moved from Southern Utah to Arizona, I gave away that book that I kept reading, and then life kept falling apart and getting better, right? Gave it away, and then I felt like I needed to read that book again, so I repurchased it and I read it. But this time I read it twice because I thought, because every time I read it, life fell apart, but it just got that much better. So I thought, if I read it twice, will it just get that much better, twice as much better, right? That was a good thought in theory. But as um I didn't I guess I didn't think through that clearly, because in order for it to get better, it had to fall apart first. So as I read it twice, life fell apart extremely. Like I made it to my lowest low that I had ever been to. So a year ago today is the day that we left Arizona. And from last year to this year has been the darkest year that I have ever had, and it has been the most transformational. Okay. So I kind of got off my paper, but that's okay. So after we left, I ended up not training, because it was either train or have time with my husband, and I chose to give the marriage a chance. And then we ended up moving to Georgia, which is not Arizona. But I learned that had we moved to Arizona, had I moved into my dream home, the home that I have, the indoor full-size gym and the swimming pool and all the perks and all the things, had I moved into that home in the mind frame that I was in the anxiety that I was in the relationship that my spouse and I had and my kids, it would not have been a dream home. It never would have been. Like, structurally, it would have sounded good, but it wouldn't have been a dream home. So fast forward to the bike trip. Through miracles and a couple of weeks of training, I finally made it on the trek. Lane asked, what would it take to make this trek a success? And I wrote, to be changed, that I live and be authentic me and not hide. So I practiced that when I was through this last year. I realized the importance of the nervous system, and having a regulated nervous system is key in being able to function, really. So I worked on calming my nervous system, and it was really scary to go travel on my own to Boston, where I've never been, and all of these new things. But I had my back and I practiced being me. And so when the family dropped me off to the shuttle and I got on the shuttle, I made a corny joke and a couple of people laughed, and that was fun. And then I joked a lot with Lane and Misty, and I had to, the whole time I was traveling, I had to calm myself down and say, I got this. We're good. We're safe. We got this. Like, I've got your back. I'm not going to put you in any situation that's not going to be good for you. And so I joked a lot with Lane and Misty. We had a great time. And one of my favorite jokes that I had to throw in here was when we went to the pizza place on Thursday, and we were just chatting, having a great time. And the server so Misty and I had ordered pizza, and the server brought the plates and the silverware and handed it to us. And I said, you forgot the food. I loved it when he kind of chuckled under his breath, and he turned away and said, that was a good one. Like, me, I really am funny. Like, Lane wasn't just giving me sympathy funny, or Misty wasn't just being like, yeah, you're funny. Like, they really think I'm funny. It was awesome. So I discovered that life is way more fun when I live it as me. And then the trip was good exercise, and we carried all we had in our trailer, and we learned that ounces make pounds and pounds make pain. And there are some things that are worth the ounces, like books. uh, but it was very liberating because I wasn't chasing the mess. It was so liberating. And then we got to journal and process. I found myself on day 2, as we were pedaling, I mourned the mess of my life because I didn't love the relationship that I had with my spouse, with my kids, with the stuff that I don't love Georgia, just saying. But as I was mourning the mess, the thought came to me to give it to God. And so I joked, and I told Lane that it felt like God rejected the big mess because it was such a mess that he can't do anything with it, but that's not actually true. But that kind of ran through my head, like, here's the mess of my life. But it was liberating to give that up too. And at one point, as we were riding along, I remember looking at the houses and naming, like, putting adjectives on them. That's a plain house, or that's a lavish house, or all of these things, where Lane had invited us to look at things differently. Like, the things that you normally would take a picture of, look around it, or look outside of it, or look at things that you wouldn't look at normally. And so my vision was on things differently. And so, but at this point, I was looking at the houses, and the thought came to me, what if they're just houses? Like, it just is. It's not something that I need to attach myself to or fix. There's nothing about it. It just is, which that was another huge learning experience for me. Has been super helpful. So as I've come home and the kids do something, then I'm able to just let it be. It just is. That just let it go and let it be. It just is. That's been super huge. And one of the biggest things that I learned was that I am the only one to blame when my needs are not met. Brett wasn't here for me to blame that I wasn't getting enough protein, that my legs were screaming at me for days. Like, it was only me. And so when I woke up on Friday morning, right before we were going to leave, I was like, I can ride myself to the store and I can get myself some protein and I can take care of myself. That was one of the biggest ahas that I had that has been life changing. It sounds so simple. And I was just telling Lane before, I don't want to share these things because they're not very light things in my life, but they don't really seem very big, right? Just like when we're trying to take a picture, there was an experience when we went to Mexico and we were on the water, and the water was amazing and you could feel the wind and the power, and it was so beautiful and magnanimous. It was amazing. And I got it on film. And then when we got back home and I put it on the big screen, the neighbors were oohing and awing, and the family was like, wow, this is amazing. And I was like, it just fell flat. Like, I had just experienced this big, huge, the energy of all of it. And then when I try to show it to somebody else, it just fell flat. So anyway, so I'm super grateful for that reminder when I think back to Friday morning and say, I am the only one. Like, when I start to blame something or somebody, then I can realize that's not how I want to live. And so that's one of the biggest things that I have come away from this trek with. But as I share this story, I hope that something spoke to you, that you can see your story and my story, and that you can see life is better when you are yourself, when you tell the truth, and that it still can get better.
That's amazing. Amy, we're going to open this up for questions from people. But first of all, I'd like to ask what and who are you going to be going forward?
What am I going to be going forward?
Like, what
Well,
is
I'm
going
going
to
to,
shift going forward?
that's a great question. So I feel like there's been lots of shifts already, and that's just going to keep snowballing. Like, going forward, it's not like it's just going to keep pushing all the crap off the side. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's what comes to mind. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Amy. Uh, Nicole, I know we can't see you, but feel free to go off mute and go ahead, and anybody who has questions or thoughts for Amy, we'd love to hear them. We have
I actually do.
a few minutes.
I actually have something to say. Just watching her from the time I met her, which was literally 2 weeks before we left, till now, which is about 2 weeks since we came back. Your confidence level, the way you speak, the smile on your face, it's just so authentic and genuine compared to the person that I met at first. And it's great to see. You just seem excited. So it's great to see.
Yes. 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 Excited about life and excited about the prospect instead of me. Oh, there was one story that I didn't tell. As I was training in Arizona, I went from the lake up to a park, and it was a good climb. Most of the way it was uphill, and I could have felt proud of myself, and I could have felt something about the view was amazing. But when I got to the top, the thought that ran through my head was, so what? And I was very disturbed by that. Like, why am I broken? Is there any hope for fixing me? And I realized through this bike trek that, like, I feel like I have had that come back to life. I am coming back to life. That I I have had experiences like with my kids where I can sit and be connected with the kids because I'm not so messed up with it, like all of the clutter in here, which I think the clutter was coming from me trying to hide from telling the truth because it takes courage to tell the truth. As if I was to totally tell the truth about what I really wanted in life, it was going to hurt my kids, is the logic that I had in my head.
Thanks for
Anyway.
acknowledging her, Misty, for pointing out something that is so very apparent to you and me, and perhaps less so to everybody else who hasn't seen the before and after. Thanks for pointing that out. Anybody else have questions for Amy?
Yeah, I've got a question. So you talked about how, yeah, the idea of professional victim to Wonder Woman. I guess like what was that like victim mentality? Like what caused that, and how did that like what made it so that you don't have that thought process anymore?
Right? That's a great question. So I realized that my life was such a mess. It was a mess anywhere I looked. Relationship with finances, my body was a mess. Like it was literally a mess everywhere, like stuff everywhere. Not that if you looked around, it would be any different right now. But like
Yeah,
life
but we
was
talked
tough.
about that. We talked
Yeah.
about that. Circumstances haven't changed.
Right. Right. I have.
Yeah.
Yes. But like there's so much mess everywhere, and I had given my everything, all. Like we came out of survival, and we brought survival habits into the future, which I still need to work on that. But it was so overwhelming to have to admit that I wasn't enough, and that I had made this mess, and that like I had given all that I could and all that I had, and it wasn't good enough. It was too much to admit that it wasn't good enough. So I tried blaming everything else, everybody else, mostly Brett. I might have to apologize to him later.
You're speaking your truth.
Right? Right?
Speaking your truth.
So yeah. So it was just too much to realize that I was the one that got myself here. But it was also very liberating. So I don't eat meat. I haven't for a year. No, it's been longer than that. But like, and I have been trying to, anyway, on the trek, I did not have a whole lot of protein, and it wasn't Missy's fault, and it wasn't Lane's fault, and it wasn't Brett's fault. And I finally realized, well, whose fault was it? It's mine. And I feel like having that time on the bike to be able to process and be like, okay, God, I am not enough, and I'm sorry, and handing it over to God and saying, please help. That's been a huge liberation. That was one of the biggest things. Thank you for asking that.
Yeah, no, thanks for answering it. I think it's super, super cool. And I think it's very, because obviously I have not known you before like 10 minutes ago or whatever. But from what everybody else is saying and from your story, yeah, it's super inspiring. So thank you.
Thanks, Brett, or Brett. Thanks, Devin, for the question. Any other questions for Amy?
Well, I haven't spoken to you in a week, so how are things from a week ago?
From a
With
week
Brett,
ago,
yeah. Actually, I
that's
guess
a
2 weeks
good,
ago, because we didn't really talk about that last week. So
right, right. I think that's a really good question too. So this last week when you were saying that it took John 2 months. So
Mhm.
Misty's husband went to New Zealand last year that I was planning on going and life fell apart, whatever. So anyway, so when John got back, it took him about 2 months for the changes to like kick in that he was like, no, 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 we're not going back to this. So I kind of feel like I'm in a sliding phase that I'm doing stuff, but I'm kind of observing what are the effects and what do I actually want. Like it kind of feels like I'm,
well, you're in your old life, but you're seeing it from a different view.
yes,
And now
yeah,
you got to figure out what you want to change.
mm-hmm, yeah, yep. Because I would definitely love to move to Arizona again, but would that actually change? Because that's one thing that I realized. If had we moved to Arizona straight from instead of moving here, I still wouldn't have been happy. So, yep.
So, Amy, can
Really
I
good tip.
interject something?
Yeah.
What was incredible, and this is for everybody to not only get a bigger glimpse of Amy, but of also ourselves. One of the tasks, the assignments that we give during the trek is today be so sensitive spiritually that you find a personal haven. It's not like you're looking for it. You're not trying to pounce on it. You're just so still, so aware, and so calm that when you enter that space, you feel its vibrations, you resonate with the energy, and you say, this is it. I'm going to stop here, and I am simply going to immerse in this experience right here. I'm going to journal, I'm going to photograph, I'm going to meditate and pray. And Amy, your response when I gave that challenge or invitation was what?
I don't remember the response. I remember we went down a path that it was a really cool path, but I had to use the bathroom so bad my eyeballs were swimming and I couldn't focus on anything. You guys stopped by the side of the river and you were like, I could see that you guys were in bliss, and I was like, like in so much pain. But through that experience, I remember thinking, like, I can't let things dissuade me from being able to have that calm and peace. And so, and I think you said to create that space. And I was like, I just have to create it inside of me.
Like, boom. It's not a sacred space out here that I'm trying to find. Your revelation was that it can't be out here. It's got to be here.
Yep.
Then everywhere I am is the sacred space. It's my haven because I am my haven.
Yep.
That just blew my mind. That was so mind blowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. So thank you. I
Yeah.
um any other final thoughts? We've gone over 30 minutes and I wanted to keep this tight. But if you do have a question, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. You were going to tell us about your bit. You were going to talk too.
Yeah. No. I wanted this all about you.
All
This
right.
is all about you, baby.
All about
Okay.
you. But I will say this. What was extraordinary is that right at the very beginning, when we landed in Boston and we're there with our warm showers host, and we're talking, Amy said, well, Lane, what if we do all this and at the end of the week, nothing's different? What if I'm still the same? I said, well, let's see what happens. And we embarked. And there, like I mentioned in the beginning, there were tears and a flood of insight. And what I what we saw in Amy was somebody who was
Hiding.
like a girl, hiding. That was the word, right?
Mhm.
I think we all three said that we've been in hiding and we're not going to do that anymore. And in fact, Amy said, with tears streaming down her cheek, she quoted the Wonder Woman movie where Wonder Woman says, well, that's what I'm going to do. Like the others were trying to hold her back and say, you can't do that. We are not going to do that. And she fiercely but firmly says, well, that's what I'm going to do. And that's what we've seen in Amy, is that there's been a big shift, that she's not going to be saddled by what other people are trying to get her to do, that the change really did come about, and that there's now going to be a different trajectory.
Yeah.
And Amy, I love you for that.
Yes.
To all of you, thank you so much for being on. Misty, I hope you'll tell us when yours is scheduled. And
Mine's individual, so.
yeah, but maybe we can sneak in. Best wishes to all of you on your own heroic journey. And please never forget that you are God in embryo, that God works through you. And as we get out of the way and allow the divine to flow through us, that's when more miracles occur than we could possibly fathom. So thank you. Have an amazing Sunday, and love to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.